Good morning again, Cornerstone. This is Tuesday, May 19th, and we want to continue our study of the book of Jonah. I was looking at the map of the introduction to Jonah, and there's two arrows. One is pointing in the direction that God had told Jonah to go, which is towards Nineveh in the east. And the other is Tarshish, which is off the map to the west in the opposite direction. It would be like you or I hearing a calling from God that said, go to New York City and share the love of Jesus with the people there. And the next thing you know, we're on a plane to San Francisco. That's how far Jonah went to disobey God. And as we read the rest of chapter 1, we're going to see not only does God have a message for Nineveh, but he has a message for these men on a ship from all different nations. And God is going to begin to open up his heart to us about his love for the nations right here in the small book of Jonah. Let's read. I'm going to read those first 3 verses again, and then I'm going to continue on with our story. We'll break it up a little bit, and I believe we'll get some really wonderful insights this morning. Now the word of the Lord came to Jonah, son of Amittai, saying, Arise, go to Nineveh, that great city, and call out against it, for their evil has come up before me. But Jonah rose up to flee to Tarshish from the presence of the Lord. He went down to Joppa and found a boat going to Tarshish. So he paid the fare and went down into it to go with them to Tarshish, away from the presence of the Lord. 2 times, away from the presence of the Lord. But the Lord hurled a great wind upon the sea, and there was a mighty tempest on the sea, so that the ship threatened to break up. Then the mariners were afraid, and each cried out to his God. You see, these seamen were from different parts of the world. And they had different gods, regional gods, that they were calling out to, asking for mercy from this great storm. So the next thing you do is get really practical in a terrible storm. It says they hurled the cargo that was in the ship into the sea to lighten it for them. Maybe if we take steps and take initiative, we'll be able to survive this storm. But Jonah had gone down into the inner part of the ship and had lain down and had fallen asleep. So the captain came to him. What do you mean, you sleeper? Arise, call out to your God. Perhaps the God will give a thought to us that we may not perish. Isn't that interesting? Different men from different parts of the world crying out to different gods, looking for the answer to how not to perish. Isn't that interesting? We are going to see that Jonah has the answer. And they said to one another, "Come, let us cast lots, that we may know on whose account this evil has come upon us." So they cast lots, and the lot fell on, you got it, Jonah. Then they said to him, "Tell us on whose account this evil has come upon us. What is your occupation, and where do you come from? What is your country, and of what people are you?" And he said to them, "I am a Hebrew. I fear the Lord, the God of heaven, who made the sea and the dry land." Then the men were exceedingly afraid and said to him, "What is this that you have done?" For the men knew that he was fleeing from the presence of the Lord, because he had told them. Interesting, their fear went from a certain level to exceeding fear when they heard that Jonah served the God of heaven and earth. And they had a greater fear of the Lord than Jonah did in this situation. And their response is, what do? We're in big trouble now. Then they said to him, "What shall we do to you, that the sea may quiet down for us?" He said to them, "Pick me up and hurl me into the sea. Then the sea will quiet down for you. For I know it is because of me that this great tempest has come upon you." Nevertheless, the men rowed hard to get back to dry land, but they could not, for the sea grew more and more contemptuous against them. You see, they didn't want to throw Jonah overboard. They didn't want harm to come to Jonah. They simply wanted to appease the God of Jonah, the one who made the heavens and the earth. And they decide to try on their own efforts, but it doesn't work. It gets worse. And therefore they called out to the Lord, "O Lord, let us not perish for this man's life, and lay not on us innocent blood, for you, O Lord, have done as it pleased you." So they picked up Jonah and hurled him into the sea, and the sea ceased from its raging. Then the men feared the Lord exceedingly, and they offered a sacrifice to the Lord and made vows. Wow. In one small chapter, we're seeing into the heart of God. He judges evil, yes. He has a low tolerance for our sin. But he also goes to great lengths to bring attention to his name. And what about us? Are we willing to go to great lengths to bring attention to his name, his great name? Are we willing to go to the lengths that we would be willing to say, "Hey, I serve the God who created the heavens and the earth"? Are we willing? And I believe that we are in a season of preparation for just that. Not to be an obnoxious Bible thumper, hitting people over the head with a 100-pound family Bible. No, but to be ready to share the reason for the hope that is within us. Well, we're going to end this session with just a little teaser, and I want us to see the humor in this book. It is humorous, but it also has a very clear message. Those mariners, as the ESV calls them, they were very serious about discovering why this storm had come up and then why it kept getting worse. And once they threw Jonah overboard and the sea calmed down, their attitude was one of humility and offering sacrifices to the God of Jonah. Powerful beginning of our story in the book of Jonah. Well, what happens to Jonah? And this is very controversial, but it says that the Lord appointed a great fish to swallow up Jonah. And Jonah was in the belly of the fish 3 days and 3 nights. Now, we are not doing this series to debate this fish. Was it a whale? Was it what? We're not. That's not the purpose of our devotional series this week. What we want to see is who God is and what He is calling us, His people at Cornerstone, to do in this new season with a new attitude, like David, men, women, young people, children after God's own heart. Praise the Lord.